Tradition 4. Each group should be autonomous, except in matters affecting other groups, or NA as a whole. The autonomy of our groups is one of our most precious possessions. This sounds great, but what does it mean? What is it to be autonomous? Webster's defines autonomous as having the right or power of self-government, undertaken or carried on without outside control, existing or capable of existing independently, responding, reacting or developing independently of the whole. Autonomy is all these things to us and more. Our groups are truly self-governing and are not subject to outside control. Each group can exist on its own if it must. Each group has had to grow on its own and stand on its own 2 feet. One might ask, is this really true? Are we truly autonomous? What about our service committees, our offices, our activities, our hotlines, and all the other things that go on in NA? The answer, of course, is that these things are not NA. They are services that we can utilize to help us in our recovery and to further the primary purpose of our groups. Narcotics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women, addicts, meeting together in groups, and using a given set of spiritual principles to find freedom from addiction and a new way to live. All else is not NA. Those other things we mentioned are the result of members caring enough to reach out and offer their help and experience so that our road may be easier. Whether or not we choose to utilize these services for the benefit of a group is up to us. They are not thrust down our throats. Some have taken offense to this. They say that when they started out they were told they had to register their group. This may be true, but many groups exist that have never registered. We ask groups to register because we can't recognize them unless we know that they exist. Once a group registers, they are sent a starter kit. This contains many suggestions and is one of the ways we share our experience to help the group. Whether or not they take our suggestion is their decision. In this starter kit it says that we must abide by the 12 traditions in order to call ourselves Narcotics Anonymous. This is also true, but these traditions are part of the set of spiritual principles that are NA. Without the traditions, NA does not exist. It really is up to the group. In the end they must choose for themselves. They are autonomous. But we said that for NA autonomy was more than this, and it is. For us in Narcotics Anonymous, autonomy is also creative freedom. It gives our groups the freedom to act on their own, to establish their atmosphere of recovery, to serve their members, and to fulfill their primary purpose. It is this aspect of autonomy that makes it one of our most precious principles. It is for this reason that we guard our autonomy so carefully. We are autonomous, and from what we have said it would seem that we, in our groups, can do whatever we decide to do, regardless of what anybody says. Well, yes and no. Each group does have complete freedom except when their actions become a threat to other groups and the rest of NA. This is the other half of Tradition 4, and the way we use our autonomy is just as important as autonomy itself. Like group conscience, autonomy can be a two-edged sword. In the past, group autonomy has been used to justify the violation of other traditions. This should never be allowed to happen because, as we have said, spiritual principles are never in conflict with other spiritual principles. If a conflict or contradiction does exist, that means that somewhere along the line we have somehow slipped away from the true principles. When we use our autonomy for the good of our group, we must be careful that our actions do not hurt other groups or NA as a whole. Again, we are given a simple rule of thumb. If we check to make sure that our actions are clearly within the bounds of our traditions, if we don't represent anyone but ourselves, if we don't dictate to other groups or force anything upon them, and if we take the time to consider the consequences of our actions ahead of time, then all will be well.